He had been on the road for more than a week and not slept in his own bed for 9 days. He had chatted at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Kigali, bonded in Bavaria with his fellow G7 leaders, and here he was at the end of the final day of the NATO summit in Madrid. And ours was to be the very last appointment on his packed schedule before he boarded the prime ministerial jet for the flight home to London. It was hardly surprising then that Boris Johnson appeared a little tired as we started the interview. Questions about the war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis and potential tax cuts were batted back with the usual corrections of any assertion that the government had done anything wrong, accompanied by the trumpeting of achievement after achievement by his administration. Yes, unfortunately for me, the Prime Minister was in full-on serious mode. And after summits, bilaterals and joint briefings with the likes of Biden, Macron and von der Leyen, who could honestly blame him? Having interviewed him more times than either of us can remember, dating back to the time before he was Mayor of London some 14 years ago, I was acutely aware that a more relaxed and brighter Boris made for a far, far better interview. So what to do? It was time to rip up the playbook and go for a more risky option, make the PM the butt of the gag and wait for his response. It had worked well before, but would it this time, with a weary Boris? Prime Minister, you've lost 2 by-elections, one in a previously very safe Conservative seat, and a party chairman while you've been out of the country. Indeed, you've been away from England longer than Lord Lucan, so, was all I got out before Boris bit back. That's nonsense, Nick, and by the way, how can you be so sure Lord Lucan isn't actually in England now? You seem to possibly possess some insider knowledge, responded the PM. Warming to his theme, he instantly went on, I think we have a right to know what you know, Ferrari. Come on, you clearly know something. This is all rather suspicious. And suddenly, it was as if I was interviewing a different man. As the onlookers, comprising my producer, camera woman and a team of about 9 from the PM's office, laughed at the absurdity of his claim, Boris relaxed into the interview, and excelled. If he were a batsman, it would have been like hitting a 6 after being pegged back for no score for 3 overs. For a footballer, it would be scoring with a bicycle kick from the edge of the penalty box when he'd been struggling all game to complete a forward pass. His answers went from rehearsed and robotic to providing genuine insight, as he became candid and unafraid of saying anything that might upset anyone or deemed to be veering off message. And truthfully, is that not why much of Britain voted for Boris? Few would have chosen him if they were looking for a safe, standardized, typical politician. He does not do that. His personality is the size of a fully grown rhino and he has a hide to match. He does the unforgivable, but is always forgiven. From sending small children crashing to the ground in a rugby game, to falling into a river in Lewisham and getting stuck on a zip wire, Boris has a unique touchstone with much of the public. Stupidly, he has lost much of that stock with his reckless style of management at number 10 during lockdown. For many that was, understandably, beyond the pale. They argue that far from being able to boast he can still be an election winner, his brand has become toxic. Instead of getting ahead of the story when it first broke and conceding he had been a fool and was truly sorry, he behaved like a recalcitrant teenager who had to have every begrudging confession dragged out of him. Now is the time for him to bring back the inner Boris. The fearless, anti-woke champion of the conservative creed, rather than a green-obsessed, eco-zealot who seems to sanction tax rises at almost every opportunity. That is what made him a winner in the first place, and can do so again. NICK 2 not a cure-all for Scotland. With predictable chippiness, Scotland's First Minister rolls the political dice and says she is firing the starting pistol for another referendum on Scottish independence in October of next year. Yet here was Nicola Sturgeon speaking in 2014, "In our view these kind of referendums are once-in-a-generation events. While the number of years a generation actually comprises is open to interpretation, no one can honestly argue that it is 9. As the party she leads has governed this devolved nation for 15 years, perhaps she should be focusing on why her country is faring so badly in crucial areas such as education, healthcare, life expectancy and the economy." Theatric foolery. Remember that glorious old Ealing comedy movie The Lady Killers? The cinema version, dating back to 1955, depicts an incompetent, bungling gang trying to stash the cash after a bank raid, but through a series of accidents and foul play, they all get bumped off. It has been repeated for decades, but only in today's world of woke is it deemed necessary to give it a trigger warning. Audiences for the stage version at the ADC Theatre in Cambridge will be warned of content that is comedic, slapstick violence. Death, offstage, implied. That is sure to kill the mood. Defense spending more important than ever. Why is there any debate over whether defense spending has to increase? Of course it does. The entire world, particularly the West, has not been so endangered for nearly 90 years. Parallels are rightly drawn between the naked and brutal aggression displayed by Vladimir Putin now, and what the world witnessed with Adolf Hitler and his Nazis in the 1930s. So this is no time to pare the army back to its lowest troop level since the days of the Napoleonic Wars. We found endless billions for track and trace and the furlough program. Investing in our safety is a must. Andy Murray's brilliant move. Consternation at Wimbledon where two-time champion Sir Andy Murray employed a cheeky underarm service as he defeated his first-round opponent. "It's just not tennis and unsportsmanlike," moaned some old blowhards. What nonsense. It is legal, it wrong-foots the opponent and the crowd love it. Well done Sir Andy, and what a shame he is no longer there to thrill us in the second week.